Hey guys, thank you once again for joining me on my video. I've got a question for you. Do you wish you could get more books read? Do you? I mean, if you can answer affirmatively to that, then I've got a way to help you out. I've got some suggestions, some tips, and I want to share them with you so that you can get on your way to surfing your way through more material that will help you grow. You'll become educated and more well-read, more well-rounded, and so the great thing about reading, and reading quite a bit, it makes you a better conversationalist. It makes your world much broader than it already is. You get to travel in your imagination to places that you probably can't go to if you're reading a book written by an author who is able to articulate himself well. And it's just reading does so much for you that I probably don't even need to tell you. Social media is one of the distractions that we have, but social media seems to have some of those components that we're looking for when we talk about reading books, which is it takes us to a different place. It distracts us, it educates us, and so. What I want to tell you is social media doesn't replace reading. It is valuable. Believe me, YouTube has been so valuable to me and helped me out with so many things, but it doesn't replace reading. So I'm not disqualifying or negating social media compared to reading books, but you can get so much out of books and so much from your public library and your local bookstore that it's invaluable. Now, here's what I want to say before I get into how to read more books, and that is put reading in its proper perspective. I know so many people who have such lofty goals when it comes to reading that they mentally and emotionally go on hiatus where their families are concerned and where their friends are concerned, and it kind of becomes a career. And I don't think it should. I don't think that reading is so important that your relationships suffer. Now, if that seems kind of weird this early in the video, mark my words, I know people like that, and I have somewhat of an inclination to lean toward that way. And I've had to pull back the reins, so to speak, on this matter because people like me, and maybe a person like you, sets a goal and will do anything to get to that end. But reading needs to be put in its proper place. It needs to be mastered, and you don't need to be mastered by it. So let's go forward from here, and let me tell you of a couple different ways to read more books and start feeling more accomplished and start feeling more educated and satisfied. And I'm telling you, it's a great journey. If you can dive into these books, not the books I'm not going to suggest books for you to read right now, but if you can dive into books that on subjects that interest you and do it the way I'm telling you to do it, your world's going to open up. Now, here's what you do. Some years ago, I looked up after getting a library card, I looked up online book reading challenges or book reading programs, something of that nature. And one of the ones that popped up was read a book a week challenge. Now, I did that for 3 or 4 years. I can't say that I read a book, one book a week all the time, because some books just vary in length. The average book is 350 pages long. That's the average book, hands down. But some are less, and so you could get through them faster. But some are 800 pages long, 1,000 pages long. So it really depends also on the content. Fiction, it's a lot easier to get through fiction quickly than it is a biography or some kind of psychology or a philosophical book. So it really depends on content and length of the book as to how quickly you can get through it. But I want to tell you, don't make your book reading all about how fast you can get through a book, because I did that for years and it didn't pay off for me as well as I would have liked. I can't say I didn't get anything out of it, but I didn't get as much out of it as I could. Now, but I will tell you, here's what the Book a Week Challenge is. Basically, you're reading 50 pages a day, because the average book is 350 pages. From time to time, you're going to pick up a book that's 200 or 250 pages. So it all kind of evens out over time, and you'll get about 50, 52 books read a year. But that's very hard to do. I will warn you, you can do that, but it's very hard to do. Now, here's a second way to attack a book reading program. Is I read a book called A Path Between the Seas, written by David McCullough. It's about the creation of the Panama Canal. And fascinating book. That is a book I will suggest to you. Anything written by David McCullough. Great history writer. And he's written so many books. But A Path Between the Seas, this is where I'm getting this from. There is a man in there named Colonel William Gorgas. He was commissioned by the United States government to go down to Panama. This is back in the early 1900s. I think it was built in like I think it was finished in like 1914, 1917. I can't remember now. Anyway, Colonel William Gorgas was commissioned by the United States government to go down to Panama as a doctor and eradicate malaria and yellow fever. Now, he did this quite successfully, and the man was fascinating to read about. And there's a whole host of characters in this book. And it's all true. All this stuff is true. There's a whole host of characters in this book that were just great to read about. Now, Colonel William Gorgas was well known for his lifelong book reading habit. And here's what he did, and this is what I strongly suggest to you. And that is, he sat down and he took three different books, and read 20 minutes apiece in each one. And he read 20 minutes exactly. He'd sit down with a stopwatch next to him and read 20 minutes in one book, 20 minutes in the next, and 20 minutes in the following book. And he'd do that every day. He did it for an entire lifetime. Now, he said that he did this so that he could remember everything he read. Now, I will say, this is why I don't necessarily recommend the Book a Week Challenge. Because you can read through a lot of books that way, but you have a harder time remembering what you read because your concern is just getting through them. Now, when you do what William Gorgas did, which was read 20 minutes a book and three different books each, you are spreading your net wide. Because most people will read one book at a time. I did for a long time. You read one book at a time, and then what happens is when next time you pick up a book, you tend to pick up a book that is very similar to the book that you just read, and you stay in one genre. You do not become well-read that way. You might read a lot of books, but you do not become a well-read person. So what you do is you pick up three different subjects. Now, he would read one scientific book, one I think it was like classic literature, classic fiction, and one light fiction. And that's what he would read. Now, I don't do that. Now, I do read one fictional book. I read one historical or documentary or biographical book, something true. And then I'll read something more topical, like philosophy, psychology, theology. I'll read something more like that, some kind of self-help book, things of that nature. Now, you don't have to do that. You can pick out whatever three topics you want, but you pick out three different topics, okay? Three different genres. And I will say, reading 20 minutes at a time in each book every day, you'll probably read through 30 to 35 books a year as opposed to 50 to 52, okay? But you do remember more. I will say I do remember much more than I ever used to by doing that. And your mind is changing gears when you switch from topic to topic. And that's good for your brain. That's really good for your brain to do that. It's not good to get stuck in one thing. And I will tell you that I love Jeopardy. I love watching Jeopardy. And by doing this, I'm amazed. I'm able to answer so many more questions now than I used to be able to when I watched Jeopardy. Now, from time to time, I will switch up things because I like to keep it interesting. I don't like to do the same thing all the time. So what I'm currently doing is I'm still reading three different books. I will probably always do that. Okay? I try to go back to reading one book at a time, and it bores me to death. I don't like keeping my nose in one book in the same material for that amount of time every day. It just bores me to death. But by reading three different books in a day for a limited time, does keep it interesting. But what I've been doing was I've been kind of blending the two ideas of read a book a week and reading 3 different books. So I've been reading 50 pages a day between 3 books. That's 16 pages in one book and 17 pages in the other 2. And I've actually been able to do it. It does take me a little more time, but I've had that kind of time. But I'm not always going to. Overall, I say the best reading plan I've ever had is what William Gorgas carried out himself. Was 3 different books, 3 different subjects, 20 minutes in each one every day. That's my suggestion for reading more books. It'll keep it interesting. It'll keep it exciting for you. I want you to stop and think about what I've just said. And if you're reading 3 different subjects every day, can you just imagine, after you get through listening to this video, write down 3 different subjects that you would like to read about. Would you like to pick up, have you ever thought about reading through Charles Dickens, or Leo Tolstoy, or Dostoevsky? Which I don't read Dostoevsky because it's hard. That's hard. I can't pronounce Russian words. If I can't pronounce the words, I'm not interested. If I can't, I'd say pronounce the names. That's it. It's not the words, it's the names. If I can't pronounce the names, I'm not interested in the book. But my word, I'll tell you what. You write down, like, if you want to read books like that, what kind of subjects would you like to read about? Sometimes I'll pick up books that have nothing to do with more than just trivia, and I'll still read through that 20 minutes a day. Whatever it is you want to do. Imagine if you did that over the course of a year, how much different your thinking would be. Just use your imagination and let it propel you forward onto a journey of reading more books, but achieving more by maybe doing less than going for the whole 9 yards and reading a book a week. I don't suggest that. But just go for it. Let me know what you've been able to accomplish. Put it in the comments below. If you have a different book reading program yourself, please let me know. I want to hear about it. I love hearing about new ways of doing things. I'm always willing to experiment with different ideas, and I like moving forward with things like that. And you know what? If I take your suggestion and I apply it and it works and I like it, I'll make a video about it. And I'm always interested in book suggestions also. I haven't made any videos pertaining to that. Right now, I will tell you what I'm reading. The 3 different books that I'm reading right now is I've got one on philosophy called From Socrates to Sartre, and the Philosophic Quest. It's pretty good. It's deep, obviously, and so I just read for 20 minutes or so, or 16, 17 pages, put it down, but I'm enjoying that. And then I'm reading another book. It's the second in a series of 3 books. This one's called Broken Beautiful. It's I'd classify as light fiction. It's written by Sheila Ray Munoz. I will talk more about that later. And then I've picked up another book that I'm really enjoying a lot called Civilian Warriors, written by Eric Prince. And this is about the inside story of Blackwater and the unsung heroes of the war on terror. Fascinating. I'm loving this book. Those are 3 books I'm reading right now. Recently, I actually finished the first in a series, in that 3 series of books called Nova Scotia Runner, written by Sheila Ray Munoz. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. And then I also finished, and I mentioned this in another video, I also finished Dead Wake by Eric Larson. As you can see, I have books lying around everywhere. I even have another book in my car I got to give back to somebody. But Dead Wake is about the last crossing of Lusitania. Awesome, amazing book. I don't want to say too much about it because I would like to do a little book review video on that one. But if you want to know more of what I thought of that book, you can watch my video on how to have real confidence. I do talk about it in there, and it's very applicable. So, guys, I hope that helped. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you get something out of it. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up. Share it with somebody that could get something from this. And be willing to share your thoughts with me. Comment below. And if you haven't already, just subscribe. I enjoy any comments that I get from anybody, and I'm willing to talk with you and communicate. So I've got to get back to work. And I guess I'll be catching you later in the next video. Thanks for your time. All right, bye-bye.